All right, let's dive right in. We're going to explore a really fundamental question today, something you've probably felt, but maybe never put into words. Why does truth feel so demanding? We're about to unpack a fascinating philosophical argument that really gets to the heart of this very personal puzzle. Think about it. When you learn something is a fact, like the Earth goes around the sun, it's not just a piece of trivia, is it? There's this little tug, this feeling inside that you ought to believe it. So where does that ought come from? What is that all about? The argument we're looking at today suggests that this feeling goes way deeper than just wanting to get the right answer on a test. It feels more like a genuine obligation, almost a responsibility, to make sure our beliefs line up with the way things really are. Okay, so let's really get into this feeling. We're starting with what philosophers sometimes call epistemic normativity, which is just a fancy way of saying our beliefs aren't random. They seem to be guided by this sense of ought, this feeling that we should believe certain things. And you can see the difference pretty clearly here. On one side, you've just got correctness. The sky is blue. It's a fact. But on the other side, you have an obligation. It's not just a statement about the world. It's a demand that's being placed directly on you. The source material we're drawing from puts this in some really strong terms. Check this out. Ignoring a truth you know isn't just a simple mistake. It's a betrayal. Wow. But who or what exactly are we betraying? And that question leads us right to the next big one. Could this feeling of obligation just come from some impersonal system? Like the cold, hard laws of logic? Let's dig into that idea. This table really helps break it down. An inconsistency, well, that's just a clash between two ideas. It's a structural problem, a logical error. But responsibility? That's a whole different ballgame. That's about a relationship between persons. And when you violate it, it feels like a personal failing because it comes from a claim that was made on you. So here's the key takeaway. A system like logic can totally flag a contradiction. It can tell you, hey, these two beliefs of yours don't work together. But what it can't do is hold you responsible. It can't make a personal demand of you. Okay, so if an impersonal system isn't the source of this feeling, what is? This brings us to the absolute core of the argument. For a demand to actually be a demand, it has to be directed to someone. It needs an address. And the key word here is addressability. It sounds complex, but it's a really simple idea. For a command to have any bite, any power at all, it needs a target. It has to be directed at a you. The source material sums this up so perfectly, so bluntly. An unaddressed demand is not a demand. It's just words hanging in the air. It's a rule without a subject. It has no force. Think about the law of gravity. It operates, it has consequences for sure, but it doesn't intend anything. It's not personally addressing you. And it's the same with logic or any other abstract principle. They don't have the intention to point a finger at you and say, hey, this is required of you. All right, so let's start tying all these threads together. We've established that this ought we feel about truth feels like a responsibility. And for it to be a real responsibility, it has to be based on a demand that is addressed specifically to us. So, where does that logic take us? Let's just walk through the chain of reasoning here. That feeling of normativity, the ought, implies we have a responsibility. Responsibility requires that we are being addressed. And to address someone, well, that takes intention. It requires a will. An impersonal force, a mere structure, just can't do that. And this leads us to a pretty mind-blowing conclusion. The source of our obligation to believe what's true, it can't be an impersonal system. It can't be an abstract law. It can't be an it. It has to be personal. It has to be a who. But hold on, the argument doesn't just stop there. It adds one final, really crucial clarification, because it's so easy to misunderstand this next part. If the ground of truth is personal, what does that mean for our relationship with it? I mean, this is the natural next question, right? If there's this who at the root of truth's demand, are we somehow part of it? Can we just collapse that distinction between us and whatever this ground is? Well, the source material is very quick to warn us against these kinds of conclusions. It's tempting to think this, for sure, but the argument is not saying that we are part of this personal ground or that its voice is really just our own voice talking back to us. That distinction is absolutely critical. And here's why. The entire argument we've been building rests on this idea of being addressed by truth's demand.
And for someone or something to speak to you, there has to be a space between you. There has to be a distance. You can't be addressed by something that you are identical with.
And this brings us to the final, really powerful idea. The personal ground of truth, whatever it is, isn't something we can absorb or become one with. It's something we can only meet. It's something we respond to. It's a relationship, not an identity. Now that is a puzzle worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me.